street. Either way, the microphone sounds like that. Sounds real muffled. Either way, I'm your community ambassador, Mr. Robert J. Anderson, and I have, well, I'll give my disclaimer first. Politically Street is not a politically endorsing podcast. We're only here for information purposes only. We're here to spotlight people doing outstanding things in our community, along with elected officials and business owners. So with that being said, I have a good friend of mine, fellow PD, well, almost alum. I'm not alum, but
you got swag hours.
Yeah, there you go. Either way, I have Mr. Noah Rattler here, y'all. So I appreciate you coming on out, man.
Appreciate it, Rob. Yeah. I'm like glad he finally invited me to come on. It's cool.
Well, I was telling you a couple of weeks ago that off camera I was talking to a good friend of ours, Kedra McIntyre, and I forget how your name came up, man. I was talking about. I forget what it was. We said, well, why don't you have Noah come on? I said, you know what, you're right. You know what I mean? So that's when I called Noah. I said, hey, man, you know what? Would you mind coming on my podcast and talk about what you do? He said, yeah, most definitely, Rob. You know, so
for sure.
For those who don't know Mr. Noah Rattler, man, tell everybody where you grew up and, you know, are you from Houston or?
Yeah, man. Born and raised, South Park, dead end, MLK, Crestmont Park is my technical subdivision. Went to Caldwell Elementary School. I've been a public school kid my whole life. Caldwell Elementary, Welch Middle School, Sterling High School, Prairie View A&M University. Grew up there, was kind of shaped by it and the unique environment that my parents created for us as siblings to grow up in. And I'm number 2 out of 4.
Okay.
Born in the 70s, raised in the 80s. Miriam Rattler is a singer in town.
Okay.
And that's my sister. And so anyway, she's right below me. Got an older brother and a younger brother that's below them, below all the rest of us. And grew up in the neighborhood, did a bunch of things, had a really eclectic range of activities and people that we were raised around. And by the time I got to Prairie View, I had spent time doing a whole bunch of different things, and then like being at Prairie View just broadened my perspective of the world and like reinforced a bunch of knowledge that I didn't have that I picked up there. And I got a chance to kind of flex things that I was raised with and that I reinforced at Prairie View once I left there. And so, see the book on the back. After I left Prairie View in 2006, I prepared and executed a walk from Houston, Texas to Los Angeles, California to raise awareness for homelessness.
Right. So tell me, why is homelessness, I guess, was under your microscope? Why that issue?
Man, how much time we got?
We got about 30 minutes.
Okay. So, keep it medium short.
I mean, it's up to you. It's up to you. Speak your heart, man.
So, my parents taught me 2 things. Like the things that, they taught us a bunch of them. But like 2 things that I got from them was to think for yourself and care for other people. Like those are some things that I saw them execute in the world. They didn't necessarily say it outright. Well, they said think for yourself all the time. Right. But like love humanity, love people is something I saw in their actions. And so like when I got to Prairie View, I was doing a bunch of I got in a bunch of organizations, a bunch of volunteer service projects and stuff. Fraternity, nuns, just social organizations, service organizations, honor societies, all this stuff. Did a lot of volunteering and community service projects. And I started like during this time, like I'd always been trying to figure out like what can make things better. Like that's my favorite activity is thinking about like observing and trying to, okay, dang, I see this is happening. Maybe if we did this, then this would happen better. Right. This would happen less. And so my thought process, because I was young and thought I knew everything, so back then it was like, yeah, I'm gonna save the world. Eventually I learned that it ain't my job to save the world, it's just my job to do my part. But along that process, it's like I got to this mindset to where, what if I can fix this one problem, if we can fix this one problem, it will have the largest amount of gains. And so after looking at several different things, mental illness was the thing. I was like, so, dang, mental illness, that's like, a lot of people do a bunch of crazy stuff because of mental illness. And how do we treat mental illness? I wound up looking at, doing a little quick research, and functionally, mentally ill, if you have the resources, you get therapy, you get counseling, you get the right pharmacological assistance, or whatever you need. You have there are a bunch of resources for people who have the resources. There are a bunch of resources for people who have the resources to obtain those resources.
Gotcha.
For everybody else, they want a lot of the folk who wind up mentally ill wind up homeless or in prison,
jail, right?
In jail. And so, like in Texas, the largest mental health hospital is the Harris County jail system. It's the largest in the state.
Wow.
And then once you get in one, the other becomes more likely. And so I was trying to figure out, like, what does this look like in the real world? Not necessarily from an academic standpoint, but like, how does a layperson like live with mental illness? And so it was easier to volunteer with the homeless than it was to go and volunteer at the jail.
Right.
And so I found an organization. I was doing an internship at the time with the city. I had a lunch and learn, and somebody from Search Homeless Services came through there and talked to us. And no, it's just Search. And then I knew somebody who went to St. John's. And so like I called Search and just to see what they had. And I started volunteering there. And once I started volunteering there, it's like I'm trying to see what mental illness looks like.
Now, what year is this?
This is 0405.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
0405. And so I was trying to just see what it looks like. Then I started to realize that homelessness is not just about mental illness. Mental illness is a thing that's out there. Mental health, mental well-being is part of the environment. It's part of the stage in life someone is in when they wind up dealing with homelessness, but it's not necessarily always the cause. It's not necessarily always the result. It's just a piece of it.
Gotcha.
And if you zoom in, you look at a crowd of people who are homeless, and then you zoom in on that crowd. From far away, they all kind of look the same.
Right.
Because they stand in the same place. But you zoom in and start talking to them individually. Everybody's path to that place is different. And everybody's path away from that place is going to be different. And so back then, I remember the stat was the average age of a homeless person in the state of Texas was 12. I didn't know that because when you look at any group of homeless people, you don't see any little children there.
No, you don't.
And so, like, that's just one of the things I learned when I started really looking at it. I went in there looking for mental illness, but then I started to see all of this other stuff. Most of the homeless people who are technically homeless, we don't see them. They aren't in those groups because those groups can be dangerous.
I've heard.
And so they aren't there. They may be in couches. And homeless people in the suburbs, before I went on the walk, there were like 10,000 people out in Fort Bend County who were homeless, and a huge number of them were children. And so it's a really diverse group of individuals. Mental illness plays its part, but the economy, our educational system, the punitive nature of criminal justice here plays a part in it. It's a lot of things that play a part in contributing to homelessness, and there are a lot of things that play their part to making it a sustainable thing. And so that's once I start to see that, I was like, oh, this is everything.
Yes.
Like if you look at something that politicians talk about and go back and forth about, the war in Afghanistan, this is the early 2000s, so the war was like kind of new then. Like there were just kids coming back from those wars winding up on the streets. The population had been changing for the last generation or so. And so but before the war, the fastest growing group of homeless people were women and their children.
Kids, right.
And so like that was new because the original, well, not even original, like the large homeless population that we grew up with was created in the 80s. ACLU went to court with Ronald Reagan, and it was like mentally ill people with schizophrenia who may have been in an institution.
Okay, gotcha, okay.
If they don't want to be there, they have the right to not be there.
Wow.
And so Ronald Reagan lost the court case, and all those people were let go. And the government organization that held those, that like kept those people and treated them and just kind of warehoused them, because I don't know exactly how great the treatment was. They just kind of warehoused. Now they aren't warehoused, they're being who they are.
Wow.
And so one of the things about schizophrenia is once you get to a certain part, like they tend to want to be outside.
Interesting.
And so being locked up and being incarcerated in that place, shoot, I like being outside. That's why I work where I work. It's not because of schizophrenia, but like it's a human thing to kind of want to be outside, and it's okay.
Right.
But like when it's someone who is schizophrenic, they present differently than someone who is normal in what we would call the normal band of mental and emotional capabilities.
Right.
And so like just it's so many things played in part of us. Like, man, for us to actually end homelessness, we would have to do better with mental illness. But we have to start catching boys when they're in the third grade. Make sure they can read before they're in the third grade, so they don't get on that prison pipeline. I mean, the school pipeline, the prison pipeline.
Yes.
Like that would pull a bunch of people off the streets. It's like I started looking at homelessness like it's like almost like a lake, and it's a river depositing water into that lake. So what we want to do is cut those tributaries off to that river. We want to dry the river up so the lake can, so we can just like right now people taking buckets and dump trucks out of the lake, of water out of the lake, and getting people off the street. But the river's still flowing, throwing people in there. We need to cut those tributaries off at the same time as organizations like Search helping get people out the street. Like Bread of Life, the Star of Hope, all these different organizations, Harmony House, all these organizations that are helping get people out the street. We need to stop putting them on there as well. So it's like we have to treat it and we have to do the prevention at the same time because we're in the middle of the ailment, of the pathology. And so just like understanding how complex it was, and I started talking to people about it, and it's like, man, this stuff is really complicated. It's not just lazy people on the street. It's not just folk who don't want to work. It's a lot of stuff going on. Those people are there, but like it's a lot going on.
Right.
And that's when I started to love walking. And so by the time I left, I was like, I'm gonna try to walk across the country one day. I don't know when.
Right.
But like if it come up, the opportunity, the time come up, I'm gonna do it.
That's crazy.
And so at the same time, I was volunteering at Search, and I was thinking about like, how could I wonder if I tried to walk to the Grand Canyon, what would happen? Right. Like how would I do it? So I was like plotting that out, and then like me and the people on the van was talking about, you know what? Let's try it. Let's try it. And since if I'm trying to do this and raise money for Search, I tried to raise $1 million. We ain't raised like $3,000 and spent like $6,000. The first round, we raised $110,000 the next couple of years. But like, if I can do this, the Grand Canyon isn't necessarily the best place to stop at. The best place to stop is Los Angeles because it had the largest homeless population in the country at the time. And it's just like another 500 miles. Grand Canyon 1,300 miles, all the way uphill. Los Angeles at the ocean, 500 miles. I was like, that should be easy. I already did 1,300. Let's do another 5. Right. And so that's how the walk was. The destination was picked, and how the two came together, walking to raise awareness for homelessness. My goal before, just when I was thinking about going to the Grand Canyon, I knew I could walk 20 miles a day without, and I could do that sustainably. I can admit that maybe I might take 10 hours some days, I might take 6 hours other days, but I can do it sustainably because I had practiced that. I had gotten up to that a couple times. And so the goal is like, that's every 20 miles, if there's the nearest city or town or rest stop or whatever, I would stop. Did that all the way up to Dallas. Our boy Terrence Phillips from PV, T. Phillips. He came through when we got to Dallas, and he got the media out, and so like he set the blueprint for getting in touch with the media. Gotcha. So from here to Dallas, I had a support vehicle. Sunshine from Sunfire Foods. He was the support vehicle driver. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and I met Sunshine. He was automatically down. And so anyway, he was a support vehicle driver. Every 3 or 4 miles, maybe 5 or 6, depending on what was the road looked like, I would meet him somewhere at a rest stop, at a gas station, and take a break. Eat some food, then get back out on the road. Have a smoothie or something, get back out on the road. Man, did that all the way up to Dallas. Wow. Once I left Dallas, Sunshine came back, and my friend Jeree came up because she was volunteering with me at Search. She came up, she had a support vehicle that somebody donated, and we went the same thing, 20 miles a day, looking for cities and towns to try and get in touch with the media. And one of my neighborhood heroes from from where I grew up under her. Me and her kids went together, like we all friends together. Miss Jessie Brown, she was like here in town coordinating stuff all across the country. Like every Monday night I called into this number she had and talked to people across the country.
Shout out to Miss Jessie Brown.
Miss Jessie Brown, putting it down since way back in the gap. She was like on the coordination point, like trying to get the word out while we were on the bus. While I was walking and like stopping at gas stations and restaurants, we would like get on the Wi-Fi if we had it and reach out to newspapers and television stations and tell them that I was coming, and shelters, and just piece by piece, we were just putting our feelers out, trying to get in touch with people, and we always found somebody. And if it was a shelter in a newspaper in the same town, then I'd set up the meeting to where they would come and we'd all have this conversation. And the goal was like, it was to raise the money, but it was also raising awareness. So like we were trying to get, it was during the summer. Oh, I left in the spring. Like I left on March 24th and finished on August the 4th. And so the goal was to, like we talk about homelessness and serving the homeless during Thanksgiving and Christmas with people homeless all year round.
That's true.
And so my goal was to like really figure out a way to get this conversation going, to have this big conversation about the complexities of homelessness, so we could really latch on to it. And then in the Forrest Gump, I actually wanted to have like a Forrest Gump following by the time I finished. It ain't happening,
right?
But I wanted it because like I thought that would amplify it,
right? But
the goal was to have this conversation during the time we aren't used to having it, and to get people thinking about it when when it's out of context. When you think of something when it's out of context, it kind of sticks a little bit deeper. And so. That was what happened. Like sometimes there was a couple nights we may have like stayed at a hotel or something. People would donate as they saw me. I had a sign on. Once I got to Amarillo, I put a really big sign on me, and like people would stop and donate. And they would see the markers on the support vehicle. They would stop there and drop us some change. One dude named Skeet came around, did a U-turn 120 miles, and gave me some fried chicken. He said it's the best fried chicken in the world. It was pretty good to be in Arizona. It's pretty good fried chicken. Right. But that was how we did it. And like my dad was, like I said, my dad was performing. My sister was performing back in Houston. They kept blowing the horn. Miss Brown kept blowing the horn and getting donations in. So that helped pay for a little bit of friends and family. It's really friends and family. Search had set up the beginning and the end on the media side with Jerome Gray, and we like patched it together in the middle and knocked it out 20 miles at a time on average. Sometimes longest day was 30. Some days, there were a couple days where I couldn't walk because the weather was too bad, but most of the time the weather was perfect, even though it was like really hot in the desert, like super hot, like it melted through my feet. I mean, like it didn't melt my shoes, but like my feet were blistered from the heat through my shoes, walking through the Mojave Desert. Wow. And it was a spectacularly immense undertaking, a spectacularly immense thing that happened to me. And it shook me, it broke me, and rearranged me in ways that I didn't imagine. I can imagine. And it took me a while to put myself back together, but that's what it was. And out of that came a bunch of other things. Like the next year we did the sleep out. I remember that. Yeah, we did that for several years, but the first 2 years we did it with Search as a fundraiser. The Houston Young Professionals Group like took the reins of it and built it up and raised, I think, $70,000 the first year, 40 the next year, something like that. And then every year after that, it was like wherever I can get a group of people who wouldn't do it. And so it was like poetry spots. TSU did it, U of H, St. Thomas did it for the last several years. Prairie View did it a couple times. People were doing it in their backyard, and even got a documentary about it. That a part of Mark came out one night in 2010. He just followed me around as I was going to all the events and talking to the different groups. Where's Purpose at? Purpose? I can't remember the name of that church. Dang it, Purpose. Anyway, boy, Purpose he jumped in one year. We went out to Howard Clark to his church, and I pulled up. I thought everybody would be asleep. Purpose like in the middle of the concert. He was like preaching. Everybody was jumping. Had them jumping. But anyway, and after that, so once people got involved, they would keep it rolling. Kept it rolling for several years, and it was a powerful thing, because like what the Sleep Out did was gave people the opportunity to come out. So I didn't know this before I did it. Like a lot of stuff I ain't know nothing about. I just had like my own very slender line of understanding what was gonna happen, and then the reality hit it, stepped in. When I started talking about the sleep out, people were like really hating on it. Like, wow, you just playing? I don't be out there playing like you're homeless. It's a thing, because like people get in costume and go sleep outside. And I was like, no, okay, I'm glad to hear that. Like that, we're not gonna be doing any of that. The goal of the sleep out is to put people in a situation that's out of their normal context and to give them information. I learned this, I went to Prairie View, but I did a summer program at TSU, and there was this math teacher named Mr. Ginn. And Mr. Ginn said, if you can hear your heartbeat, that's when you study.
If you can sing?
If you can hear your heartbeat, that's when you study. And that usually happens when you're either really quiet and like super present in the moment, or you get frightened. And so like whatever your mind is at, it got to be right here. I think that was the point of what he was saying. You have to be like right here. And once you're right here, like in this present moment, you can get really good at, information sticks better. So I got that from him and other stuff. So like people do sleep outside. Folk from the homeless population come and join us. And people from the organizations that serve the homeless, they come out and join us. And so you get everyone in this circumstance. It's like the second week in November, second Saturday in November, or something like that. So it's either cold or it's raining. It's one of the two. So it's uncomfortable. It's a new environment, and so your attention is already up, and you get to hear people talk about why they are homeless, and there are a bunch of reasons, but those reasons aren't happy reasons. So like that touches the heart,
of course.
And then you get to people who come out and talk about this is how we help the homeless, and like the statistics and the different parts of it. So that's the mind, and so you get this event where you put out your environment, you get touched in your heart, you get touched with your mind. And then after the event's over, lights out, time to go to sleep. And the goal is, when it gets quiet, everybody talking and excited, then eventually it gets quiet, people lay down. It's either raining or it's cold. Before you go to sleep, you out there, you hear the ambulance driving in the background, you hear the cars, getting bit by mosquitoes, or trying to figure out how you're going to keep warm. Yeah, I think everybody asked themselves, am I going to go home right now or not? And then the next step, it's not am I going to go home, it's the realization that you have the option to go home. And the people who you just talked with don't have that option. For whatever reason out there, they don't have that option. And I think that pivotal moment, that little moment, that's the whole event was built to give people that moment. So you can't have that moment unless you belong, if you're in a certain circumstance. And so we provided that environment for that moment, that one moment to happen. When that moment happened, it's changed people's lives.
I can imagine. I couldn't even imagine, not being able to go home. You know what I mean? So, Wow. And so, like, that was, like, while I was walking, I saw somebody doing the sleep out in Wichita Falls. So I took that idea from them. And that's in Houston, right? I mean, Texas.
Yes,
I'm thinking about
287 between Dallas and Amarillo.
Gotcha.
And when I was walking through the desert, like, man, I was hoping to be on like Good Morning America by now. So it's like not enough people have heard about it. You know, more people had heard about it than I thought all across the country.
But this is pre-social media though.
MySpace. It was MySpace.
Okay, gotcha.
But it was, Facebook was like still kind of exclusive.
Right.
Being shot from school to school. I think it may have just gone wide, but it wasn't as big as MySpace. And so, like, I knew something. I need to do something to get more people involved. People were like saying, "Good for you, Noah. Good for you." And like, I appreciate that, but like, good for me, it doesn't get someone else involved. And so I will need to do something to get more people's hands on it. So that's what the sleep out was about.
Gotcha.
So you can actually take part in this. You can participate in this.
Gotcha. And
have your own moment where you go on your own journey instead of just watching me go on a journey. And then so like the next thing was 2014. My homie Nakisha Pickney, classmate from Sterling High School.
I'm gonna shout out Miss Pickney.
Yeah, for sure. She had the idea of writing a children's book. She had been living somewhere else, and we was talking 2013. And that's 2012 we was talking about. 2013 we started writing. Found an artist from another partner of mine, Tiffany. She with Imagery, shout out to Imagery. She does literacy, big time literacy. Has brought a lot of artists out who highlight black, just to put black faces in our children's literature.
Gotcha.
And so she had an artist who I liked the work he did, and I shot him in the kitchen. She liked it.
Yeah,
you could tell the work was done well. We did the book in 2013, published it in 2014. The idea was like a book could even go further. Like The Walk touched a bunch of people, The Sleep I touched more, and the book could even go further. Right. Each one I was trying to get a national footprint. None of them really got a national footprint until the book. We got the book out. We did 54 events in 52 weeks. Wow. Yeah, it was a grind that first year, 2014. But we got a lot of books out locally. Did that summer we did the Black Expo, and the event didn't really do us that well. But like the last person to come through was Phyllis Hunter, and she was like, "I'm gonna take your book to Scholastic." How much you sell this book for? I was like, we sell them for $12. You need to sell them 10. I'm like, who's this great lady? And so she, I ain't hear nothing from her for months. And eventually, I don't know if it may have been the next year I called her. I may have called that fall. I don't know, something happened. I think the next year, Scholastic, she actually did it. It just takes time, and so I didn't know what her time is, but it happened when the time was supposed to happen.
Gotcha, right.
She took it in there. Phyllis Hunter is like a big-time literacy expert in the world. She was, rest in peace, Ms. Hunter.
Okay.
But she was like big-time. She had her own reading library at Scholastic. So like you can buy a reading library, a Phyllis Hunter library, and you have books from K to 6th grade for your classes or for your school. And so like she curated stuff for Scholastic, and so when she brought it in there, eventually, like they wound up hitting us up, and we licensed them to distribute the book. Okay. And that's how I got that. It finally made a nationwide impact. Okay. Like kids all over the country and a few countries outside of the United States. I mean, we get a report on like where the books go. That's powerful. And it's out there. And so like that.
I see you got it in Spanish too.
Yeah, we got it
French,
translated from English to Spanish and French Canadian. And back then, I mean, it was just so hard. It was a grind trying to get this book out and like pushing it. But it was worth it because like for Real Men Read, I got a notice one day that I think it was in Cincinnati or Cleveland, one of the two. It was like some city council member reading my book to a bunch of kids. Wow. Like all over the city. Like this book was being read to those children. And so like the idea of the book, the ideas in the book are out there, like planting seeds in children's heads that it's important to do something for your community, that one person can make a difference, but together together we're much more powerful. I agree. And that's the focus of the book. It's out there, and so like I call that a little success. I call it.
It's a lot of success, but actually I don't know if you know it or not, but I had purchased your book back in 2014, 15, I think about 15 somewhere from there. And I went to a career day at my mom's school, she taught it, God rest her soul and so, but I brought your book and read to the kids, you know what I mean? So yeah, man. I used your stuff, man. So yeah, just
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. It's a trip, man. Like I didn't know how powerful it would be until I kind of held it in my hand and realized, like, man, if I get hit by a car, like this out there, it's out there. It's out there now, yeah. And it's like working. It's putting in them reps. Like, it was deep. And then I was like, so I try to get out and go to schools and speak to as many as I can, talk to them and children. Because like the book is one thing, but like when I'm there to reinforce it and like tell stuff and answer questions to the kids, it's like every time I do it, they feel motivated to do something outside. Like first time I did, I was in 3rd Ward, talking to these kids. I can't remember the elementary school, but like it was like a I don't know, Men's Day thing. It's some young boys I talked to, and you can tell the kids were poor, and but like. And they weren't even really badly paying attention. They were cracking jokes at me, at each other, trying to fight. I was like breaking them up. Little boys having a good time. They wasn't in class, they were having a good time. Right. The person who invited me, Captain Green from Insert, shout out Captain Green, he called me like a week or two later and said, Noah, I don't know what you said to them boys, but they ain't got all the canned goods and extra clothes out of their whole neighborhood. They like pull together like hundreds of pounds of stuff to give to the homeless. Wow. And I wasn't trying that. I was just telling them what I did.
Yeah, right.
And so like, man, this is amazing. I talked to a couple other schools, and the same thing happened. And so like now, because that's real, my goal is to like get other people involved to, like get out to more schools, and challenge the children to like get out there and make a difference.
We have to. Yeah.
Because this is not just my world. It's not just a man's world. It's like everybody who live it. This is ours, and it's gonna be what we make it. So like, y'all are welcome to join in and start right where you are.
Gotcha.
And so long term with that, it's just like we get little children, get them started when they're children. When they become adults, they're already used to doing the work.
That's right. I agree.
And so like they think differently, they'll vote differently, because they'll be conscious of what's really going on, and like that's just gonna have real change. That's gonna have real impacts on the world.
I agree. I was reading somewhere, I think I saw on social media that Will Smith's son opened a restaurant for homeless people to come in and eat for free. And
that's cool.
So, but you're doing something not similar, but kind of on the, as far as like with gardening.
Yeah. So like my whole thing is like right now, like in my evolution of who is Noah Rattler? Are you trying to save the world? No. I'm trying to make it better? Yes. How are you trying to make it better? Like with my every effort, like the best life for me is a life to where the things that I do, the fun that I have, the work that I do, best case scenario is helping. It's being of service somehow. It's not like breaking stuff down. So like I got this big old van, like so climate wise, like I know I'm pumping. It's a gas guzzler. It ain't great. So like but I'm planning to plant like a bunch of thousands and thousands of trees before I die. So like hopefully I can kind of make up for that. But like I work at this. I wanted to learn how to grow food. So I started working at Hope Farms out in Sunnyside. Okay. Growing food for the neighborhood, and then it's I think Hope Sunnyside. That part of it for sure is technically a food desert. So it's within a couple miles of no real fresh food. So the farm produces that. And now we produce so much food, it's enough for the market. People come out there on the market on Saturday mornings from 9 to 1. We got a CSA, people all over the city come order food. It's not a lot, but it's enough people. And it all helps to sustain the farm so we can keep producing food at a discounted price for the community.
Gotcha. Yeah. Hope Farms, it's a sister that was out there. She had just got started. It must be a different person, I'm thinking, because she started with like a trailer and converted it into like a. It'll come to me in a second, man. But that's a good idea, man.
It's a different organization. It's a different organization. And, it's from Recipe for Success. Okay. Recipe for Success has been around, I think, like 13, 14 years. And they were doing like gardens in schools and cooking classes for kids in food deserts. But like. Finally got that land and put the farm on it.
So what happens when a person can afford land? What can they do to start growing their own produce? Because I've been trying to grow produce for the last 44 at least 20 some odd years. I just haven't gotten into I guess setting aside or trying to buy some land. What can I do? Because I stay in an apartment, so what can I do to grow my own produce? And then what I think now it's kind of late because now it's May. We should start in April, but how can a person?
I mean, like, the thing about Houston, the good and bad thing about growing food in Houston is you can grow something all year round.
Gotcha, okay.
Like, it's, farmers up north got breaks. They have breaks. Now, they do stuff with that break. Like, equipment, fixing equipment, and all the other stuff, but like, we plant something almost every week.
Oh, wow.
All year round.
Wow.
Which means we're harvesting something almost every week, all year round. It's like July and August. The hottest part of the year is not really good planting time. Okay. Out in the field where you just got straight sunlight. If you got some shade, you can plant stuff that maybe like so. Greens don't do that well in the summer. Some of them do, most of them don't. But like if you got some shade, like partial shade during the day, then you can grow greens all year round. Gotcha. Okay. And so like I live in an apartment and I got a bunch of plants on my patio.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday. You talking about how and it's funny how you said about I have the same kind of walk with plants, but one of you said was dying, but then you took out one part that grew out, you put it by itself, and it just started, it started growing on its own.
Right. And the plant, it wasn't dying, it just, so one of the most fascinating things about just working with plants is one, just to see where our food comes from. It's interesting to see, like this seed in this tray, this plant in this ground, this thing grows up, you got a jalapeno. You eat the jalapeno, take out the seeds, put it in the ground. It's one thing to know it, but it's another thing to do it. It closes the loop in your mind between knowledge and understanding. Like it brings knowledge and understanding. But like, even just on the farm, after this season is over, we get rid of the plants. We go put them in the compost pile. But the plant will live on if you let it go, for most of them. And so this kale plant, like, which wouldn't have lived more than 3-4 months, it's like several years old, and like it's going through its entire life cycle. I'm allowing it to go through its entire life cycle, and it's doing some other things. So that's really cool. I guess we might have to follow me on Instagram if you're interested in that type of information.
We're definitely gonna get, you know what I'm saying, give you a section where you can do your plug or whatnot, you know.
Oh, okay. I don't want to go all the way down in that rabbit hole.
No, we good, man. But no, I have a friend of mine I had met volunteering. I would give out. A friend of mine in the South. She does a toiletry drive every year. So long story short, I met somebody at her toiletry drive to where she's like a fitness coach. But long story short, she moved to California and she had some soursop seeds. I said, well, hey, what you gonna do with them? So she said, I'll mail them to you. I said, bet. So she mailed them to me. We planted them, and they actually grew. They grew some leaves, grew a stem back around, you know, to the life cycle. Hopefully, you know what I mean. But if I grow some soursop, man, that's gonna be phenomenal.
Oh yeah. I've eaten it off a tree in Costa Rica when I went to a permaculture course. And it's spectacular.
It is, man. I had some. We went to. I was in Tanzania, and we were in Arusha. No, it was Tanzania. No, but wherever Kilimanjaro was there. Anyway, but one of the guys out there, Pete O'Neill, is the ex-Black Panther. He's from Kansas City, moved out there. He got the compound. His whole compound is like he's off the grid, but it's like he's living it up over there, man. I was actually kind of jealous, you know what I mean? But anyway, he had some soursop, and they said, hey, try this. I'm like, look at it, like, man, you know, that American size, you know, but when I put it in my mouth, man, I was like, oh my God, what is this? You know what I mean? So, it had like a pineapple/apple sweetness to it or something, man. It's phenomenal, man.
It's amazing.
I found a spot over on Bel Air and the Beltway. I think is it Linda's Kitchen? No. It's someplace out there, like I guess a Korean place. They sell soursop, but it's like they, of course, peel it for you and put it into a container. But that's someplace I found in Houston, only place.
I'm glad there's one place. Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? So, but either way, tell people how can they find Noah and the book as well, how they can get a copy of it, or you know, you say you haven't. I mean, everything's kind of going digital now, but still, I'm an old school guy. I want to put a book in my hand and turn the pages. You know what I mean?
Easiest way to get a book is to go to Amazon.
Okay.
Go to Amazon.com, order it, and you have it. However, Jeff Bezos can get it to you. That's the easiest way to get one.
Okay.
You can find me. I'm Noah Rattler. That's Noah like the art, Rattler like the snake. At Noah Rattler on most social media. I don't have a TikTok, but Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Buy me a coffee. You can sign like all those places. I'm there, and if you're interested in any of this stuff, bring me out to the school. Hit me up. If you're in the area, I can sign your book for you. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm doing. I really appreciate what you're doing, cause we talked in one of my things. Shade Tree Politics conversations. Like we need to really understand what's happening behind the face of the government, and we just need to know how the wheels of this machine works because we're tasked with running it, and like people can take advantage of our power if we don't understand how our power works.
Yes, sir. And
our power is understanding how the machine works, and if we let that knowledge stay in the hands of the people who are running it, who are tasked with running it, it would seem like they have the power when it's actually us.
It's us, that's right.
We have the power.
Right. Yeah.
And so like I appreciate what you're doing, having these conversations, and I'm gonna continue as well doing that. So like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Noah Rattler, Noahrattler. Have to enunciate.
What about your? You have like the email address you can probably get you to. But this is broadcasted. I got people in Honduras. I mean, all kind of places that listen into this and whatnot. So give an email address if you have that as well.
I don't really check my email. Man, there's so much spam in there, man. Like, hit me on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. Like, hit me up there.
Gotcha.
Noah's Walk, the children's book, is also on Facebook at Noah's Walk CB, and it's on Facebook and Instagram. So, like, the children's book has its own page on all those platforms, and I'm available as well through those platforms. That's the easiest way to get in touch with me, through Instagram or Facebook or something like that. Yeah. And I got to hit me on Noah Rattler. It's the same thing on YouTube. There's not a lot up there. I got an old page, but like it's a lot on. A lot of this new stuff gonna be on the new page.
There you go. Gotcha, man. So, before we get off of here, man, what kind of advice would you give any kid that's wanting to get behind any kind of outreach or any kind of movement or things or anything they're passionate about? What kind of advice would you give them?
The biggest thing is learn as much as you can about it. You don't have to know everything before you jump in, but let knowledge guide you. Like, we have a heart, and our heart tells us where we want to go, and our brain is there to make sure we get there safely. Because your heart will get you killed trying to get somewhere, and it won't care. It cares nothing about like the rest of you. But our brain is like here to get you there safely. And so if you feel moved to do something about it, jump in, get with the folk who are doing it, but like learn on your own. Study this stuff, educate yourself on the process, and that way we'll do the best thing for what the issue is instead of doing what we think is best. Because people will do stuff because they feel it's the best thing to do, but it can wind up being doing more harm.
I agree.
We gotta use everything we got.
Yeah, I agree. All right, cool, y'all. So I have a new quote that I just came up with about maybe a few weeks ago. There should be no I in politics, because when you break down, you etymology of the word politics, poly means many, and then the root word TICS for blood-sucking parasite, you know what I mean? So you add the issue to the end, that's the art of taking from, you know what I mean? So that's my moniker. There should be no I in politics, right? So either way, you can find me on Instagram, Polygamy Street, and you can find me on YouTube, Polygamy Street as well. Make sure the merchandise is coming out pretty soon. If you believe that there should be no I in politics, you got to follow this movement, y'all. So with that being said, Mr. Rattler, I appreciate you, man.
For sure, man. For sure.
I pray I see you at homecoming. They have it this year, you know what I mean? Don't set it out.
I actually think the last time I saw kids was with you at homecoming. Like, we walked on her and we walked up on you.
Could have been.
Last time we were at homecoming. Yeah.
Shout out Keith, man. So anyway, y'all, I'll see y'all next time. Peace.
I'm Noah Rattler. Just finished an interview with Politically Street. Shout out to Politically Street. I can be found on all platforms. This is my book. It's called Noah's Walk. It's about my 1,800-mile journey from Houston to Texas, raising awareness for homelessness. And if you follow me, you'll see all the stuff that I do. I help people grow food. I work at a farm in Sunnyside. Have discussions about politics and science and meteorology and all of that. Anything that happens under a shade tree, you can holler at me and we'll talk about it. So come through, follow Rob, support the channel, support the podcast, hit the YouTube up, and there's no I in politics. So saith Politically Street.